Welcome back to our channel. This is the second video I believe we've done. Amy's not with me today. Amy's being productive and actually earning money by working, and I'm sitting around doing nothing. So I thought I'd record this video. It's about my tattoos. I don't actually have that many, so it's not going to be like a crazy video. I've got 16, and the reason I started getting tattoos was when I was growing up around like 14, 15, I started getting into like metal and what people used to call screamo, and a lot of the artists were covered head to toe in tattoos, and that's when I first sort of saw tattoos as something more than just sort of, do you know, but you see when you see people like they'll have one here and it's awful, or they'll have, you know, tramp stamps. That's all I'd seen. But that was the first time that I was looking at full sleeves of like beautiful artwork, and it really inspired me from that point to like want to get tattoos as soon as I could. And to the point where I was drawing on my fingers the finger tattoos that I wanted when I was in like geography. But my parents, they're not against tattoos. My mum's got like a tattoo like that goes up her arm and across her back into her other arm, but that was a cover up. And my dad's only got one tattoo, but they're not 100% the idea still, even though they've got them. It's odd, but I got my first tattoo 3 months after I turned 18, for the only reason being money. I wanted to spend some decent money on it. So just, oh yeah, when I'm talking about my tattoos, I'll put a picture after I've mentioned them as well. So the first tattoo are the X's on my wrist, which I'll show you now. And what these represent are straight edge. And straight edge is like a it was like a subculture of punk that came about when a band called Minor Threat released a song called Straight Edge. It essentially represents no drinking, no drugs, no smoking. Poison free is like one of the sayings that they use a lot as well. And I actually wasn't straight. I was straight edge already without realizing it. I didn't drink, didn't smoke, didn't do drugs. It wasn't my thing. I didn't like it. I wanted to stay away from it completely. And then I discovered this subculture, and I was like, that's cool. So the symbolism, I really liked. So I got it tattooed, 2 X's on my wrist. And that was my first tattoo. You could say it counts as 2 tattoos, but it's, I don't know, kind of one. And I count it as 2 because it makes the amount of tattoos I seem to have higher. So after I got those 2, I got the Chaos Star in between my shoulders. I'll show you that one now. I got that on a camping trip with some friends, and we were sitting. It was a 4-day trip, I believe, and like while we were there, like each day we were trying to think of what tattoos we wanted to get. And I was thinking about cards, like, oh no, is that a little bit too cliche to get all like the suits of cards? I had a few ideas, I wasn't too sure. And then I remembered the Chaos Star. And I discovered the Chaos Star when I was doing graphics in school. And I had to create a album art and merchandise for a fake band. And when looking for images to like Photoshop onto designs and that, I found the Chaos Star, and essentially it just represents chaos. And what it is, I believe it's 8 arrows pointing in all directions, as a like direct opposite of like Law and Order, which is represented by 1 straight arrow. The chaos has loads going down. So that was my second tattoo. That was my first one's hurt a bit, but it was my first tattoo, so I think it hurt more because I was expecting it to hurt. My back was quite painful. I remember wincing a lot, but I can't really remember. It was like three odd years ago. Like, I can't really remember, but I know it hurt because I remember like sitting in a chair and people laughing at me because the faces I was pulling. So after that tattoo, I think it was about 6 months later, I got the dark mark on my forearm. I actually didn't, when I walked into the shop, I wasn't supposed to get a dark mark. Like, I wanted to get a skull with like a snake going in the eyes and out the jaw, or like something like that. And the artists just put snake skull into Google and the dark mark came up. And I've loved Harry Potter all my life. Like, I read all of the books when I was like 13. I was lucky enough to go watch Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince with all the makeup artists and behind the scenes people before it came out. So it's something I absolutely love it. So I thought, like, might as well just get a dark mark on me. So I got that. That was like, that didn't hurt at all. There were bits where the artist went super deep, where now I've actually got raised tissue on my arm because he like really went in. It's not like very well executed, but I still like it, because I don't think that I will ever regret any of my tattoos. That doesn't mean I won't cover them up, but I won't regret them, because at the end of the day they're all like it's almost like a timestamp. I can look at it and go, oh, I know where I was, I know who I was with, I know what my life was like roughly in that point. And in the same month as that, while that was actually still healing, I got my noose. The noose is a bit of, not a controversial one, but people sort of look at it a bit funny, because I know it's quite a it's quite strong symbolism, especially if you know someone who's, you know, hung themselves and something like that. But for me, what the noose is actually cut at the top and here. And what that was for me, when I was going through like my teenage years, from like, say 13 to 18, 19, it was quite rough for me. Like, mentally, I didn't really know who I was or what I wanted, and there was a lot of things going on. And as morbid as it is, I think a lot of people at that age, you think about self-harm, you think about suicide, and for me, this represents that chapter's behind me. That's I've cut the rope, and, you know, I've got past that. So it's not a sad tattoo for me. It's like I've been there, I've done that, I've got out the other side, and now I can move on. But I really love that tattoo. That was my most expensive tattoo at the time. It was £160, whereas that was 40. The 2X's was 17. My back was 40. So I don't spend a lot on my tattoos, and like a lot of people would be like, yeah, you can tell. But I like the stamped big black tattoos. Like, that's just what I like. So after the noose, what did I get after the noose? I believe after the noose, it would have been my Anarchy A. And my smiley face on my knuckle. So the Anarchy A is like, I can't even remember how I discovered like anarcho-syndicalism or anything like that, but I remember looking into it, and it really intrigued me, the idea of a world without a government, which is something that people turn their like backs up against very, very quickly. Oh, how does this work? How does that work? Whatever, like. So I've looked into it. I'm trying to educate myself a bit more. And one of my favourite sayings from Anarchy is, "No one's more qualified to tell you how to live your life than you are," which stuck with me quite. I always remember that. So I've got that on me. I genuinely believe in it. It's not a case of like anarchy. Really, like a lot of people have anarchy tattoos, and they're not anarchists. Essentially, like they just think the symbolism's cool. I genuinely believe in it, and I'll get people ask me, "Oh, so how does this work? How does this work?" And a lot of the time, I won't have the answer, in the same way that your average person doesn't know the ins and outs of how capitalism works. Like, so I'm trying to educate myself best I can, and that's what I've got that there. In the same breath as that, I got the smiley face. That is actually quite a political tattoo. It's not just a smiley face. So the eyes are sewn up, and that represents out of sight, out of mind. And I feel like that sort of represents the working class, and people who are ignored, like, and who I find are underrepresented. And say like working class, poorer people, you know, people in Africa who are still starving, wars in Syria and the Middle East. These people are going through hell, and yet we're sitting here and I'm filming on a nice phone and I've eaten nice meals, and we're living these decent lives, and all this is going on, and like we rarely think about it. So that's what I've got that, and the mouth is sewn up, and that represents the silent majority. Um, the silent majority is something I first heard of in history when I was studying history at GCSE in America. And what essentially means is, if there was a vote on, for example, Brexit, you'll find there was a huge proportion of people who didn't vote. And that proportion of people could have changed the result. So for me, I think we've all got this right to vote, especially in sort of the UK and the US. In Australia, where we are currently, like you have to vote, even if you just vote for no one, you have to vote. But these big issues that people don't vote on, and then everyone complains that they didn't go their way. Not to say that voting necessarily like works. There's another quote saying that if voting changed anything, then make it legal. I'm quite left in my politics, but I'm not like angry left. You get a lot of people who get their back up really quickly, and they'll argue and they'll shout, and I feel like that doesn't help anyone. So I'm open to debate. So after that, I believe I got this. The heart tattoo. It used to be a broken heart that my sister paid for, and then I got it caught in a door, or I rubbed it in a boxing glove or something, and while it was healing, it just all fell out. It was awful. So I've actually had that filled into a full heart now. Let's see. After that, it was probably the triangle on my left forearm. I actually, again, went into the tattoo shop not realising I was going to walk out with that. I walked in and I wanted a black band below my elbow and a black band above my elbow. But the tattoo artist didn't want to do it because the shape of an arm isn't perfect, so like the line of the edge of the band wouldn't be straight, no matter how hard he tried. So I had to like come up with an idea in like 3 minutes, which is what I did with this here. What it is a triangle comprised of two triangles with a gap down the middle. And for me, what that represents is, at the time, I was falling out with my mum and dad a lot, just because I was at an age where I was just arguing and I was being brash and obnoxious. But for me, what it means is, like, even though we had fallen apart, which is what the line represents, we still are a family. We still make up that big triangle. So that's why I got that. Some people think it's really weird. Some people think it's really cool because it's just a big black triangle on my forearm. I love it though. I think it's so cool. So after that, we've done, I believe, oh no, I've still got a couple on my fingers. So I've got the 4 and the question mark on my thumbs. I got the 4 with 3 other people, so there were 4 people who got this tattoo. A 5th person then got it later, but originally there was only 4 of us who got this tattoo. My voice keeps like cracking. We were all friends at the time, and we all wanted to get a tattoo, so we just did it. A lot of people are like, why would you do that? What if you fall out with those people? And I did fall out with those people. I don't fall out. I fell out with one of them. I don't speak to one anymore, and one of them I do speak to is still my mate. But the day after I got that tattoo, I got this question mark because I questioned the fact that that friendship group would stay together. And I wanted a question mark as well, so it all just sort of like tied in quite nicely, to be honest with you. So yeah, when people are like, why would you get a tattoo like with other people? Like, what if something happens? And like it did, it doesn't bother me that I don't talk to some of these people anymore, because at the end of the day, that the time when I got that tattoo was a really good time. I was enjoying who I was with. I'm not gonna tarnish those memories just because I don't speak to them anymore. Why would I like just throw all that away and all those good times and just forget about it, when at the time I really enjoyed it? I don't understand why I would do that. So I've still got it. I believe one of the people who's got it covered it, but each their own. Then I got, so the last finger one is this spider here. I'll do a better picture of that now. This tattoo is awful. It sucks. I walked out of the tattoo studio and I went, I'm getting this covered. Things because it's so small and it's got little legs, like when it healed and like the ink bleeds out a bit, like it all just mushed into a smudge. So that was a bit naff. But I liked getting my fingers tattooed because it was £10 each. For these tattoos, £10. It was 40 for the triangle, by the way. I didn't mention that, and it was 80 for the one on my stomach. But £10 for a tattoo, like you could just be walking down the street, walk past the parlour, and be like, "Oh, I've got a tenner. Let's go get a tattoo." So that's what I've done. After them, I got the word "alone" tattooed on my hand. And at the time, I was feeling very alone. I was feeling it was quite rough. Like I'd been through some stuff that I'm not going to get into, but it was hard. But like I say, as I've moved past that and I'm now in a really good part of my life, like I've got Amy, we're traveling the world, it's incredible. It just marks, it sort of just reminds me to like just enjoy and be appreciative of what I've got, because once upon a time I wasn't in this good position, so that's what that reminds me of. And it's on my hand, so I see it quite a lot. I do really like it. That was my first like tattoo on my hand. I've only actually got two in my hands technically. So after that, where are we at now? I believe, oh, I've got my chest here, the key. I'll do this again, I'll do a better picture of that now. The key I got after I got fired from a job that I was really enjoying. So I wanted something that sort of turned that into a positive. So I got the key, and for me, it was sort of like, you know, unlocking the next chapter, unlocking like the next thing, the next, like me getting fired is a good thing, and because it's allowed me to now do, like that's the headspace I was in, and it turned out to be quite true. Because again, if I hadn't got fired, I wouldn't be here now in Australia with my girlfriend, and I would never like. It's quite crazy to be honest with you, and I'm sort of glad I got fired because none of this would have happened without it. So that was the last tattoo I got in England. I've got two tattoos since I've been out in Australia. The first being the spider on my hand. It's a scratchwork redback. I think it's so cool. I got it to represent sort of my time in Australia, like sort of from the beginning. Like, oh, this is when we first arrived. Like, I hate spiders, and the one on my finger didn't go well, so I thought I'll get a better one. So I've got that. I really like that. That goes onto my hand like a lot more. So even if I cover my hand like that, you can still see it. But the way it's the placement, I really like. It goes around this like bone, and like I love it. I think it's so cool. And then the last tattoo I got was this. Can't really see it, but it's a micro bat. And this, it was quite a sad story, but about a month or two ago, I was at a bazaar with Amy where Amy was working, and I was tapping my foot on the floor, and I heard a squeak. And I thought it was like a, you know, bit of plastic or something. I did it again, and there was another squeak, and I looked down, and there was this bat, and its body was about that long, head to tail even. And I was like, oh, whoa, oh, I've just stepped on a bat. Like, what? So like everyone sort of scrambled, and we got it in a Tupperware. Someone got bitten, and I was like, oh no, like I've hurt this bat, and we had it in this Tupperware. And the person who got bitten, who was Amy's brother, was googling what could happen if you could get bit by a bat. And in Australia, they carry lysovirus, and what lysovirus can do is it can actually kill humans. So they had to rush to the hospital. I'd phoned Wires in the meantime, which is like the RSPCA of Australia, and they said they were going to come pick this bat up, and they didn't by the time we needed to leave to go to the hospital. So I brought the bat with me. So we drove like an hour to the hospital. Amy and her brother went in, and I stayed in the car with this bat. They were in there for like 10 and a half hours. In that time, I'd fed this bat water. I was looking after it. I was me and this bat for 10.5 hours just in this car. And they eventually got back, and we drove back to where we were staying at the time. And finally, at like 10 a.m., like the morning after the night it happened, and they, were like, okay, cool, we've got someone who was going to come get it now, and they came to pick it up. The bat's name was Barney, by the way. One of the wires people, we rang up and they named it Barney on the phone. But then one of their people came out, and when I went out with the bat, because in the meantime I'd given it slices of apple and like tried to make a little ped for it, and like tried to make this like little Tupperware as comfortable as possible. So I walked down to the wise person who's walking up the drive, and she was like, "Oh, is this the bat?" I'm like, yeah. Sort of, it's like explaining what's happened. She just puts a glove on, grabs it like in a fist like that, and puts it in a cloth bag and does it up, and then tells me that they're gonna have to euthanize it because it's bit someone. I was absolutely mortified. She walked off and like got into a car and drove away. I walked into the house and I broke down in tears. I was absolutely devastated. For some reason, like it was super hard for me, and like after like 20 minutes of like just crying my eyes out, like I just saw that the little apple that I'd cut up in the Tupperware that he like nibbled on, and just set me off again. It was super hard, and it was quite rough. That whole situation actually made me go vegetarian a couple of days later, but I'll talk about that another time. But as a result of that, I wanted to get him tattooed, so I did. So I've got him tattooed across my stomach, life size. Yeah, that's quite meaningful to me. Like, it's quite a big tattoo. I see it every time I look in the mirror with my t-shirt off. So it's probably my largest tattoo, most expensive as well. It was the equivalent of £400, whereas this was the equivalent of £200. So I've definitely upped the amount I'm spending, and I'm getting better tattoos. And I'd love to, like, by the time we leave Australia, have loads all up here. But we'll see what happens. But so yeah, that's all the tattoos I've got for now. I hopefully want to do a video on my piercings I've got as well. I've had a lot more than I currently have. So that's all of my tattoos. I've probably spent in total like maybe just over £1,000. I might be wrong, like if you added it all up. But yeah, that's all my tattoos. So I hope you enjoyed me talking absolute nonsense about my tattoos that are not that good. But yeah, cheers for watching.